Economics, national economics. National income. National income is the total monetary value of all final goods and services produced in an economy out of the productive activities in a given period of time, usually a year. From this definition, we note the following. A national income is measured in money terms. However, we are interested in the value of goods produced and not money itself. Only market prices of final goods and services are considered. This is intended to avoid double counting since production takes many stages before goods reach the final consumer. We measure both goods and services. Services are also measured because they also satisfaction to consumers. Income should be derived from goods and services arising out of productive activities. Therefore, incomes received from their work done, for example, pocket money for students, pensions, unemployment benefits, bursaries, gifts from friends and organizations, transfer payments should be excluded when estimating national income. National income figures exclude incomes from illegal activities like prostitution and gambling. National income is measured per period of time, thus it is a flow variable and not a stock variable. Income should be from transactions of a particular current period. Those arising from periods other than the current period should be excluded. Concepts used in national income. Definitions of key words. Category A. S/N. Word. Letter meaning. 1. Product. P. Is the total monetary value of all final goods and services produced in a given period of time, usually a year. 2. Domestic. T. Within the geographical/territorial boundaries of a country by both nationals and foreigners. 3. National. Un. By nationals living within and outside a country. 4. Growth. G. Including the value of depreciation. Economics, national economics. QN. Define the following terms as used in national income. Gross domestic product GDP. Gross national product GNP. Net domestic product NDP. Net national product NNP. Solutions defined for them. 1. Gross domestic product GDP. This is the total monetary value of all final goods and services produced within the geographical/territorial boundaries of the country by nationals and foreigners in a given period of time, usually a year, including the value of depreciation. 2. Gross national product GNP. This is the total monetary value of all final goods and services produced by nationals living within and outside the country in a given period of time, usually a year, including the value of depreciation. 3. Net domestic product NDP. This is the total monetary value of all final goods and services produced within the geographical/territorial boundaries of the country by nationals and foreigners in a given period of time, usually a year, excluding the value of depreciation. 4. Net national product NNP. This is the total monetary value of all final goods and services produced by nationals living within and outside the country in a given period of time, usually a year, excluding the value of depreciation. Category B. S/N. Word. Letter. Mean. 1. Factor cost FC. Valued at prices of factors of production. 2. Market price MP. Valued at current market prices of goods. Economics, national economics. QN. Define the following terms as used in national income. Gross domestic product at factor cost GDP-FC. Gross domestic product at market price GDP-MP. Gross national product at factor cost GNP-FC. Gross national product at market price GNP-MP. Net domestic product at factor cost NDP-FC. Net domestic product at market price NDP-MP. Net national product at factor cost NNP-FC. Net national product at market price NNP-MP. Solutions defined for them. Any 2. 5. Gross domestic product at factor cost GDP-FC. Economics, national economics. Category C. S/N. Word. Meaning. 1. Nominal income. Individual. Refers to one's income expressed in monetary terms. The economy. Valued at current year prices. 2. Real income. Individual. Is the amount of goods and services that one's nominal income can buy. Or is the purchasing power of nominal income. The economy. Valued at base year prices. QN. Define the following terms as used in national income. Nominal income. Real income. Nominal national income. Real national income. Nominal gross domestic product GDP. Real gross domestic product GDP. Nominal gross national product GNP. Real gross national product GNP. Nominal income per capita. Real income per capita. Solutions defined for them. Any 2. 7. Nominal income. This is one's income expressed in monetary terms. 8. Real income. This is the quantity of goods and services that one's nominal income can buy. Or real income is the purchasing power of nominal income. Economics, national economics. 9. Nominal national income. This is the total monetary value of all final goods and services produced in an economy out of the productive activities in a given period of time, usually a year, valued at current year prices. 10. Real national income. This is the total monetary value of all final goods and services produced in an economy out of the productive activities in a given period of time, usually a year, valued at base year prices. 11. Nominal gross domestic product (GDP). This is the total monetary value of all final goods and services produced within the geographical/territorial boundaries of the country by nationals and foreigners in a given period of time, usually a year, including the value of depreciation valued at current year prices. 12. Real gross domestic product (GDP). This is the total monetary value of all final goods and services produced within the geographical/territorial boundaries of the country by nationals and foreigners in a given period of time, usually a year, including the value of depreciation valued at base year prices. 13. Nominal per capita income. This is the average income of the population in a country valued at current year prices. 14. Real per capita income. This is the average income of the population in a country valued at base year prices. Category D. 15. Depreciation/capital consumption. This is the loss in the value of capital assets through wear and tear arising out of their usage in the production process of a given period of time. 16. Depreciation value/capital consumption allowance. This is the amount of money set aside by an entrepreneur to cater for the wear and tear of capital assets of a firm. 17. Personal income. This is the total income received by individuals in a country from all sources before taxes and other compulsory payments are deducted in a given period of time, usually a year. 18. Disposable income. Economics. National economics. This is the income available to individuals for spending or saving after personal income taxes and other compulsory payments like NSSF have been deducted. 19. Transfer payment/transfer income. Refers to payments made to individuals without corresponding goods and/or services rendered, i.e., they are non-quid pro quo payments. Or refers to income received by an economic entity without anything given in return. Examples of transfer payments in Uganda include grants/donations, old age pension, students' pocket money/upkeep to spouses, relatives, etc., bursaries, sick relief/benefits/allowance, and other forms of relief. 8. Sources of transfer payments include government. This includes the local, central and foreign governments, individuals or households, institutions like business funds and non-government organizations (NGOs). 20. Net income from abroad/net property income. This is the difference between property incomes earned by nationals abroad and property incomes earned by foreigners in the country. Net income from abroad equals nationals' earnings x foreigners' earnings m. 21. Per capita income. This is the average income of the population in a country in a given period of time, usually a year. It is obtained by dividing total national income by the total population. Letter 1D44 letter 1D45 letter 1D45F letter 1D450 letter 1D44 letter 1D45D letter 1D456 letter 1D461 letter 1D44 letter 1D456 letter 1D45B letter 1D450 letter 1D456 letter 1D45 letter 1D452 equals letter 1D441 letter 1D44 letter 1D461 letter 1D456 letter 1D450 letter 1D45B letter 1D456 letter 1D45B letter 1D450 letter 1D450 letter 1D45A letter 1D452 letter 1D447 letter 1D45 letter 1D461 letter 1D43 letter 1D459 letter 1D45D letter 1D45 letter 1D45D letter 1D46 letter 1D459 letter 1D43 letter 1D45 letter 1D45 letter 1D45F letter 1D450 letter 1D43 letter 1D45D letter 1D456 letter 1D461 letter 1D43 letter 1D456 letter 1D45B letter 1D450 letter 1D450 letter 1D45A letter 1D452 equals letter 1D4VA letter 1D45F letter 1D45C letter 1D460 letter 1D460 letter 1D437 letter 1D450 letter 1D45A letter 1D452 letter 1D460 letter 1D461 letter 1D450 letter 1D45F letter 1D45C letter 1D451 letter 1D46 letter 1D450 letter 1D4VA letter 1D437 letter 1D443 letter 1D447 letter 1D450 letter 1D461 letter 1D43 letter 1D459 letter 1D443 letter 1D450 letter 1D450 letter 1D462 letter 1D459 letter 1D43. Economics. National economics. 22. Income per factor. This refers to the average income earned by a factor. Letter 1D4PC letter 1D45A letter 1D450 letter 1D450 letter 1D45A letter 1D452 letter 1D45D letter 1D452 letter 1D45F letter 1D453 letter 1D44 letter 1D450 letter 1D461 letter 1D450 letter 1D45F equals Letter 1 D461, letter 1 D45C, letter 1 D461, letter 1 D44U, letter 1 D459, letter 1 D45B, letter 1 D44U, letter 1 D461, letter 1 D456, letter 1 D45C, letter 1 D45B, letter 1 D456, letter 1 D45B, letter 1 D450, letter 1 D45C, letter 1 D45A, letter 1 D452. Letter 1 D461, letter 1 D452, letter 1 D461, letter 1 D44, letter 1 D459, letter 1 D45B, letter 1 D46, letter 1 D45A, letter 1 D44F, letter 1 D45, letter 1 D45F, letter 1 D45C, letter 1 D453, letter 1 D45, letter 1 D453, letter 1 D453, letter 1 D45, letter 1 D450, letter 1 D461, letter 1 D459, letter 1 D44, letter 1 D44F, letter 1 D45C, letter 1 D462, letter 1 D45F. No. Determinants of real income in an economy include the size of nominal income, the size of disposable income / level of taxation, the price level / general price level / rate of inflation / cost of living, the quantity of goods and services available, the size of the subsistence sector / monetary sector. Adjustments in national income. 1. A from gross to net, subtract the value of depreciation. B from net to gross, add the value of depreciation. 2. A from domestic to national, add net income for abroad. E from national to domestic, subtract net income from abroad. 3. A from factor cost to market price, add indirect taxes and subtract subsidies. D from market price to factor cost, add subsidies, add subtract indirect taxes. Examples. 1. Given GDP, obtain NDP. 2. Given GNP, obtain NNP. 3. Given GDPMP, obtain GDPFC. 4. Given GDPFC, obtain GDPMP. 5. Given GDP, obtain GNP. 6. Given GNP, obtain GDP. 7. Given GNP at factor cost, how would you derive GDP at market price? 2 marks. Try. 1. Given gross domestic product at factor cost, what adjustments are required to obtain net? Economics, national economics. Work examples. 1. Given that a country's GDP is SHS 400 billion, net income from abroad is SHS 40 billion and depreciation is SHS 20 billion. Calculate the net national product in NP. 2. Given GDP, a factor cost for country Y is 300 billion euros, indirect taxes on expenditures 100 billion euros, subsidies is 150 billion euros, calculate the country's GDP at market price. 3. Given that a country's stock of machinery is valued at SHS 100 billion at the beginning of the year, the total output from the machinery during the year was SHS 500 billion, depreciation costs during the year were 20%. Calculate a value of depreciation. 2 marks. The net output during the year. 2 marks. 4. Determine the per capita income of an economy whose GDP is SHS 10 billion and the total population is 80 million people. Try. 1. Given that the gross national income is SHS 275 million and the net income from abroad is SHS 15 million, calculate the gross domestic income. 2 marks. 2. Given that GDP at market prices is £500 billion, indirect taxes amount to £155 billion and subsidies are £200 billion, calculate the GDP at factor cost. 2 marks. 3. Given that the country's stock of productive machinery is SHS 200 billion at the start of the year 2016, the total output generated by the machinery during the same year was SHS 800 billion, depreciation costs for the same period were 30%. Calculate I. Value of depreciation. Roman 2. Net output during the year. 4. Study the table below showing the population and GNP of countries and B. And answer the questions that follow. Country. GNP $1 million. Population million people. I. 1200. 20. B. 750. 15. Calculate the per capita income of country A and country B. Economics, national economics. Determinants of the level of national income. 1. The government policy of taxation and subsidization. The offering of subsidies to producers by the government reduces the cost of production, and this encourages investors to produce more goods and services, which creates high national income. However, heavy taxation discourages investors because it increases the cost of production, which leads to low levels of output of goods and services, leading to low national income. 2. Rate of capital inflow and outflow. High rate of capital inflow in form of incomes from nationals abroad, donations and grants increases funds available in the country for investment, resulting into high levels of output. Produced hence high level of national income. However, high rate of capital outflow in form of income and profit repatriation reduces the funds available for investment, thereby limiting production of goods and services, hence lower level of national income. 3. Level of entrepreneurial skills / managerial skills / the entrepreneurial ability. High managerial skills lead to better organization of factors of production, which leads to production of more goods and services, which creates high national income. However, limited entrepreneurial skills result into poor organization of factors of production, leading to low output of goods and services, hence low national income. 4. Availability and level of exploitation of natural resources. Natural resources refer to all gifts of nature. They include minerals, water bodies, soil, etc. Economics, national economics. 6. Political climate/atmosphere. A favorable political atmosphere characterized by peace and stability gives confidence to investors, thus making it possible to produce more goods and services, which creates high national income. However, political instability creates fear of loss of life and property among investors, leading to low output of goods and services, hence low national income. 7th, level of monetization of the economy / the size of the subsistence sector. A big monetary creates greater volume of marketed output, and this brings about high national income. However, a large subsistence sector creates low volume of marketed output, and this brings about low national income. 8. The level of accountability / rate of corruption. Low level of corruption, high level of accountability among government officials avails funds that are used to promote investment, for instance provision of subsidies to producers, and this leads to production of more goods and services, which creates high national income. However, high level of corruption, low level of accountability among government officials reduces funds available for promoting investment activities, and thus fewer goods and services are produced, which creates low national income. 9. Size and quality of the labor force. A big number of highly skilled workers is associated with efficiency and high output of goods and services, which creates high national income. However, a small and unskilled labor force is associated with inefficiency and low output of goods and services, hence low national income. 10. Market size / level of demand. A large market size encourages investors to produce more goods and services, and this creates high national income. However, small market size makes investors to produce few goods and services due to fear of making losses, hence leading to low national income. 11. The level of savings. High level of savings leads to high level of investment, which encourages production of more goods and services, and this leads to high national income. However, low levels of savings lead to low levels of investment, and this reduces the amount of goods and services produced, which gives rise to low national income. Economics, national economics. 12. Size of the capital stock. Capital stock of a country includes industrial machines, factories, private and social capital, which is used to produce other goods. A large capital stock enables producers to produce more goods and services, which create high national income. However, a small capital stock causes low output of goods and services, and this brings about low national income. 13. Level of development of infrastructures. Well-developed infrastructure in form of better roads and communication facilities encourages investors to produce more goods and services, which creates high national income. However, poor infrastructures in form of poor roads reduce the level of investment, and fewer goods and services are produced, hence creating low national income. 14. Level of planning and plan implementation. Proper planning and implementation of projects encourages resource exploitation, which increases the level of production of goods and services, thereby leading to high national income. However, poor planning and implementation of projects lowers the level of resource exploitation, which leads to low productivity, hence leading to low national income. 15. Population growth rate. A high population growth rate increases the dependence burden, which reduces the level of savings of the working class, and hence low investment and low production of goods and services, which creates low national income. However, a low and stable population growth rate increases the level of savings and investment, which leads to production of more goods and services, which creates high national income. 16. Economic climate / rates of inflation. Stable prices encourage producers to invest and produce more goods and services, which creates high national income. However, a high rate of inflation discourages producers due to increase in the cost of production and hence low output of goods and services produced, which creates low national income. 17. The existing land tenure system. Private ownership of land encourages investors to set up economic ventures, and more goods and services are produced, which creates high national income. However, customary in economics, national economics. 18. The terms of trade. Favorable terms of trade promote production of more goods and services for export, hence leading to high level of national income. However, unfavorable terms of trade discourage production of goods and services for export, and this leads to low level of national income. 19. Attitude of people towards work. Positive attitude towards work by the people enables them to undertake risks, and therefore more goods and services are produced, which creates high national income. However, negative attitude towards work creates laziness among the people, and this leads to low output of goods and services, which gives rise to low national income. 20. The degree or level of conservatism. A high degree of conservatism among people limits adoption of new and better methods of production, and this leads to low output of goods and services produced, which creates low national income. However, A low level of conservatism among people makes it possible for them to adopt new and better methods of production, which increases the output of goods and services produced, which creates high national income. Breit-Soms-Kippeltag. G. Government policy. R. Rate of capital inflow and outflow. E. Entrepreneurial ability. A. Availability and level of exploitation of natural resources. T. Technology. P. Political climate. S. Assistance sector. A. Accountability. A. Labor force. M. Market size. S. Savings. K. Capital stock. I. Infrastructure. P. Planning. Economics, national economics. I. Inflation. L. Tenure system. T. Terms of trade. A. Attitude of people towards work. C. Conservatism. Discussion questions. 1. Why is the GNP of USA higher than that of Uganda? 2. Explain the benefits associated with an increase in the country's size of national income. 3. Account for the low levels of gross domestic product in developing countries. 4. Suggest measures that should be taken to increase the size of national income in Uganda. 5. Discuss the measures being taken to increase national income in Uganda. 6. Explain the measures that have been taken to increase national income in Uganda. Solutions. 1. The following are the reasons why USA has higher GNP than Uganda. USA has a higher level of political will and incentives than Uganda. This leads to production of more goods and services in USA than in Uganda. USA has a higher level of entrepreneurial ability than Uganda. This leads to proper and better organization of other factors of production, hence production of more goods and services in USA than in Uganda. USA has a higher level of resource exploitation than Uganda due to possession of the necessary skills and technology. This leads to production of more goods and services in USA than in Uganda. USA has higher levels of technology due to advancements in science and research, unlike Uganda with backward techniques. This leads to production of more goods and services in USA than in Uganda. USA is more politically stable than Uganda. This gives confidence to people in USA to engage in income-generating activities, unlike in Uganda where people have fear for loss of their lives and property. USA has a larger monetary sector than Uganda. This leads to greater volume of marketed output in USA than in Uganda with a large subsistence sector. Economics, national economics. USA has a higher level of accountability than Uganda. This avails more funds that are used to promote investment, hence production of more goods and services, unlike Uganda with a low level of accountability. USA hire a higher level of labor skills than Uganda due to higher level of education and training. This leads to production of more goods and services in USA than in Uganda, which has a big pool of unskilled labor. USA hire a larger market size than Uganda. USA produces high-quality goods and services that are highly demanded in USA and other parts of the world, unlike Uganda that produces poor-quality goods and services that fetch low prices, especially on the world market. USA has a larger of capital stock than Uganda. This enables it to venture in large-scale industrial production that Uganda cannot afford. USA has better infrastructure than Uganda. USA has a better road network and communication systems that facilitate smooth running of production activities, unlike Uganda with a poor road network that discourages investment. USA has a low population growth rate than Uganda. This enables individuals to save and accumulate more capital necessary for production of more goods and services than Uganda. Prices in USA are relatively more stable than in Uganda. This encourages production of more goods and services in USA than in Uganda, where prices are ever-changing. USA has better terms of trade than Uganda. This is because USA is more industrialized and thus produces better quality goods that command higher prices on the world market than the poor quality goods produced by Uganda. People in USA have a more positive attitude towards work than those in Uganda. This enables them to undertake risks and produce more goods and services, unlike in Uganda where many people, especially the youth, are lazy and have more time for gambling than doing productive work. USA is associated with less cultural rigidities than Uganda. People in USA easily adopt new and better production techniques which lead to production of more goods and services, unlike in Uganda where people have continued to use poor methods of economics, national economics. Causes of low levels of national income in LDCS. 1. Low levels of natural resources and exploitation. This results in low output of goods and services, leading to low levels of national income. 2. Low level of existing stock of capital / inadequate capital. This limits exploitation of natural resources and production of goods and services, leading to low national income. 3. Low level of technology. This leads to underutilization of natural resources, leading to reduced volume of goods and services produced, hence low national income. 4. Small size of the market, both local and foreign. This makes investors to produce few goods and services due to fear of making losses, hence leading to low national income. 5. Low levels of skills of labor. There is a problem of low levels of skills of labor due to low levels of training and the poor education system in the country, which leads to low levels of productivity and efficiency, and this gives rise to low levels of national income. 6. Poor political climate / political instability. This creates uncertainty, fear among investors, leading to low level of output of goods and services and hence low national income. 7. Low levels of infrastructural development. This is in form of poor roads, which reduce the level of investment and fewer goods and services are produced, hence creating a small size of the national income. 8. Low levels of entrepreneurial ability. This results into poor organization of factors of production, leading to low output of goods and services, hence low national income. 9. Existence of a large subsistence sector / low levels of monetization of the economy. There is a large subsistence sector in developing countries whereby individuals produce for own consumption, which creates a low volume marketable output, hence low levels of national income. 10. Negative attitude towards work. Economics, national economics. 11. High rates of inflation. High rates of inflation discourage producers due to high costs of production incurred, hence low output of goods and services, which creates a small size of national income. 12. Low levels of savings. This is mainly due to poverty among the nationals, thereby limiting the level of investment and causing production of low levels of output, which give rise to low levels of national income. 13. Unfavorable government policy on investment, e.g., high levels of taxation. Heavy taxation discourages investors because it increases the cost of production, which leads to low levels of output of goods and services, leading to low national income. 14. Cultural factors, e.g., conservatism. There is a high degree of conservatism among a number of people who do not want to adapt new methods of production, hence there is low output of goods and services produced, leading to low level of national income. 15. High population growth rates. This increases the dependence burden, which reduces the level of savings of the working class and hence low investment and low production of goods and services, which create a low level of national income. 16. Poor land tenure systems. There is a growing class of landless people, hence discouraging investments and less goods and services are produced, which results into low level of national income. 17. Unfavorable natural factors, e.g., floods, drought, etc. These mainly affect agricultural production, leading to low levels of output of agricultural products, hence low level of national income. 18. High levels of corruption, low levels of accountability. There is a high level of corruption among many government officials who tend to misuse investment funds for personal needs, thereby limiting the level of investment, hence low levels of output of goods and services, which gives rise to low levels of national income. 19. Low level of productivity of labor and other cooperant factors. 20. High levels of dependence on foreign aid / other countries / negative foreign influence. Economics, national economics. Steps that should be taken to increase the level of national income in Uganda. 1. There should be increase in the level of exploitation of natural resources. The government should encourage more exploitation of natural resources like minerals. This can lead to increase in output of goods and services, resulting into increase in national income. 2. Improve technology. The government should encourage the use of capital-intensive technology in order to ensure massive production of goods and services, thereby leading to increase in national income. 3. Labor should be equipped with appropriate / necessary skills, with greater emphasis on specialization. Labor should be trained and given the necessary skills which are in line with Uganda's development needs. With greater skills, labor force is able to participate in production and produce more goods and services, hence an increase in the level of national income. 4. Improve on infrastructure. The government should improve on infrastructures such as roads so as to increase access to raw materials and market centers. This stimulates investment and leads to production of more goods and services, leading to an increase in national income. 5. Provide investment incentives. The government should provide investment incentives such as subsidies, tax holidays to potential investors. Such incentives attract more investors to Uganda, and this leads to production of more goods and services, hence increasing the size of national income. 6. Undertake entrepreneurial training / manpower planning. The government should embark on improving entrepreneurial skills in the country, for example through organizing seminars and workshops so as to increase on the number of entrepreneurs who can mobilize and organize factors of production and bear risks. This increases the output of goods and services, thereby increasing the size of national income. 7. Improve economic planning and management. The sectors in the economy should be properly planned for and well managed. This leads to production of more goods and services, thereby increasing the size of national income. Economics, national economics. The government should encourage private investors to take up most of the collapsing enterprises with the aim of increasing the production of goods and services, thereby increasing the size of national income. 9. Modernization of agriculture. The government should encourage irrigation and the application of modern farm equipment by the farmers. This is aimed at increasing agricultural output, thereby leading to an increase in national income. 10. Expansion of markets, both local and foreign, should be encouraged. The government should continue with the policy of identifying new markets and expanding on the existing ones. A widened market promotes investment, leading to production of more goods and services, thereby increasing the size of national income. 11. Ensure economic stability. The government should ensure economic stability in form of stable prices of goods and services. This is achieved through setting up a maximum price and maintaining it for a reasonable period of time. Stable prices encourage investments, leading to production of more goods and services, thereby increasing the size of national income. 12. Ensure political stability. This is aimed at giving confidence to investors, thereby making it possible to produce more goods and services, hence increasing the size of national income. 13. Further diversification of the economy should be promoted. Economics. National economics. Measurement of national income. Importance of computing national income. 1. National income figures are useful for economic analysis and planning. National income statistics provide useful information to the government which can be used for current and future economic planning. For example, national income figures are used when preparing the national budget and prospective long-term plans. 2. It is used to determine the standard of living of the people in a country. Total national income is divided by the total population in a country to obtain per capita income. Per capita income indicates the level of economic welfare of the people in the country. 3. It is used to compare welfare in a country over time. For comparison purposes over time, the per capita income figures of the different years are compared to enable the government to identify the year in which people's welfare was better. 4. National income figures are used to compare the standard of living between countries for international comparison. National income figures are computed to compare the GDP, GNP or per capita income of different countries. For example, the per capita income of Uganda can be compared to that of Kenya to find out whether an average Ugandan is better off than an average Kenyan. 5. It is used to determine whether an economy is growing, stagnant or declining. Economics. National economics. 7. It helps to show the expenditure patterns within a country. National income figures reveal public and private sector expenditure when the expenditure approach is used. For instance, it is possible to identify how much money government spends on services like education, healthcare, transport, defense and security. 8. It is used to identify the leading and lagging sectors. National income figures show the economic performance of different sectors of an economy. This enables the government to identify the sectors that are growing at a fast rate and those that are growing at a slow rate, such that measures are taken to uplift performance in the lagging sectors and at the same time maintain growth of the leading sectors. 9. It is used to request for foreign aid. Donors always need information about national income so that they can select appropriate sectors that they can give assistance. 10. National income figures show the extent of dependence in an economy. National income figures assist the government to identify the sectors on which the country largely depends. The sector with the highest contribution to gross domestic product (GDP) is the one upon which the country greatly relies. 11. National income figures are useful when carrying out research. Research scholars of economics make use of data pertaining to a country's input, output, income, savings, consumption, investment, employment, etc., which is obtained from net national income and net national expenditure. Economics. National economics. Methods/approaches of measuring/calculating/estimating national income. There are 3 methods used to estimate national income. These are the income approach, the expenditure approach, the output/product/value-added approach. The income approach. This involves adding up all incomes received by persons and enterprises for rendering productive services in an economy in a given year. Under this approach, national income equals wages plus interest plus rent plus profit transfer incomes. NE. Transfer incomes are excluded when estimating national income using the income approach so as to avoid double counting. Problems associated with this method. 1. Inadequate information. Individuals have different sources of income which are not known to the government. Many people are self-employed and are not willing to declare their income in fear of high taxation. As a result, the national income figures in this circumstance are either underestimated or overestimated. 2. Difficulty in identifying transfer payments. Being non-quid pro quo, such payments should be excluded when calculating national income figures, otherwise double counting may arise. However, it may not be easy to identify the transfer payments, hence the problem of double counting and overestimation of national income figures. 3. Inability to identify incomes from abroad. Income from employment of labour abroad is in most cases excluded when computing national income figures. This is because it is very difficult to collect such data. 4. Difficulty in identifying capital gains. Capital assets tend to appreciate in value as a result of an increase in market prices of such assets. Therefore, capital gains are received by the owners of such assets, but they do not. Economics. National economics. National income figures. However, sometimes capital gains are included, leading to overestimation of national income. 5. Difficulty in identifying income from illegal activities. Income got from illegal activities such as prostitution and gambling should not be included in national income figures because it is not got out of productive activities. However, in most cases such incomes are not excluded and this leads to overestimation of national income. 6. Difficulty in identifying income from unpaid for services. Some services are rendered but they are not paid for, e.g. family labour, housewife services, etc. Since these services are not paid for and they are productive, national income is underestimated. The expenditure approach. This involves adding up the total amount of money spent on final goods and services by private consumer/household C, business firms I, government G, and the foreign trade sector/external sector XM in a given year. Under this approach, national income NY equals C plus A plus G plus XM. Problems associated with this method. 1. Difficulty in distinguishing between final and intermediate expenditure. It is only expenditure on final goods and services that must be included in national income estimation. Expenditure on intermediate goods must be excluded in order to avoid double counting. However, it is difficult to distinguish between expenditure on intermediate goods and final goods. This leads to overestimation of national income figures. 2. Inadequate information. In most cases, it is very hard to obtain information on expenditure, especially on personal expenditure, private investment expenditure, government expenditure, etc. This is because many people do not keep records of their expenditure. This leads to underestimation of national income figures. 3. Difficulty in estimating expenditure on imports. These should be excluded from the national income statistics. However, there are many people involved in international trade and it is very hard to get information regarding expenditure on imports. This leads to underestimation or overestimation of national income. Economics, national economics. 4. Difficulty in identifying expenditure on transfer payments. These should be excluded from national income. However, private people and government are not willing to reveal such information. Output/value added approach. This involves adding up the total money value added to the output at each stage of the production process in a given year. Problems associated with this method. 1. Inadequate information. Under this approach, it is very hard to establish how much has been produced by all enterprises in a given year. This causes either underestimation or overestimation of national income. 2. Difficulty in identifying final and intermediate goods. Only final goods should be considered under the output approach. However, it is not always clear whether the commodity is an intermediate one or final one, hence double counting leading to overestimation of national income. 3. Difficulty in identifying inventories and work in progress. These are goods that are produced but not used immediately. Some goods are produced in the course of the year but are sold in the following year. The problem arises whether to include the value of inventories in the current period or in the next period. 4. Difficulty in determining the value of subsistence output. Subsistence output refers to one for the producer's own consumption, non-marketed output. There is a problem of attaching value to output that does not pass through the market. The most appropriate approach in measuring national income. In developing countries, the most suitable method for computing national income statistics in developing countries is the value-added/output approach because of the following reasons. 1. Data on output is more available as compared to data on income and expenditure. This is because individuals are more than willing to reveal information on output than on income and expenditure. The information concerning output is available at the production centers, e.g. factories. Economics, national economics. 2. That eliminates double counting since only the value added at each stage of production is considered. 3. The approach is not affected by transfer payments as the case is for the income and expenditure approaches. 4. It automatically eliminates illegal activities like prostitution and gambling. 5. It reveals the goods and services produced by each sector and they are valued at factor price or market price. 6. It is only the output approach that takes into account the subsistence sector. Since Uganda has a large subsistence sector, the output approach is most appropriate for computing the monetary equivalent of the contribution of the sectors to national income. Problems encountered when compiling national income. Developing countries. The problems encountered when compiling national income can be categorized into two, i.e. conceptual and statistical problems. Conceptual problems. These are problems that arise due to failure among economists to have a uniform or universal understanding of the definition of national income. These problems originate due to failure by economists to agree about what to include or exclude when compiling national income. They include 1. Problem of defining the boundary of production. Economics, national economics. 3. Problem of unpaid for services. Some services are rendered but they are not paid, for example family labour and services of a housewife. Economists find it hard to decide whether such services should be included or not. As a result, such services may be excluded yet they are productive. 4. Failure to distinguish between intermediate and final output. Only final goods should be considered when compiling national income. However, it is not always clear whether a particular commodity is an intermediate or final one. For example, sugar can be used as an intermediate good in the production of sweets as well as a final good for domestic use. As a result, the value of a good or service may be estimated more than once. This leads to double counting, hence overestimation of national income. 5. Problem of illegal activities. Income earned through illegal activities such as gambling, smuggling and prostitution should be excluded when measuring national income. However, it is difficult to identify such incomes, and activities considered illegal in one country may be legal in another. 6. Problem of transfer payments. During the course of the year, some individuals get income without corresponding goods produced or services rendered. These transfer payments should be excluded when measuring national income. However, they are sometimes included because it is difficult to differentiate them. 7. Problem of timing production. It is very difficult to determine the output produced in the country during a particular year. This is true especially for agricultural output, in which it becomes hard whether to consider the time of production or the time of harvesting when estimating national income. 8. Problem of inventories and work in progress. This basically considers goods that are produced in one accounting period and sold in another accounting period. A problem arises whether to include the value of inventories in the current period or the next period. 9. Difficulty in choosing the method of measuring national income. Theoretically, the three methods are supposed to yield the same results. However, in reality, these methods may not yield the same results, especially where the necessary adjustments. Economics, national economics. Statistical problems. These are problems to do with the collection and accuracy of national income figures. Here, we focus on challenges that are likely to make national income figures inaccurate or unreliable. 1. Inadequate statistical data. Developing countries have limited information on incomes, expenditure and output. This is mainly due to absence of proper record keeping by producers and consumers and unwillingness of people to disclose their incomes and expenditure for many reasons. This leads to misleading national income figures. 2. Limited skilled manpower. There are few statisticians, economists and accountants with the necessary skills required to compute with accuracy the national income statistics. 3. Problem of price changes. When national income is valued at current market prices of goods and services, price changes affect the value of national income. An increase in the general price level of goods and services leads to increase in national income, yet actual production might have fallen. On the contrary, a fall in the general price level of goods and services leads to a decrease in national income, yet actual production might have increased. Therefore, the national income figures computed under conditions of price changes are misleading. 4. Problem of statistical errors. The process of compiling national income statistics is subject to many errors, such as errors of omission and commission, which bring about wrong totals of national income figures. 5. Difficulty in calculating the value of depreciation. As capital assets are used in the production process, they wear out, hence a loss in their value. The value of depreciation is subtracted from the total national income to obtain net national income. However, it is difficult to measure with accuracy the value of depreciation, since different firms use different methods of calculating this value. Therefore, this creates a statistical constraint as countries depend on gross instead of net national income. 6. Problem of double counting. This refers to estimating the value of an item more than once when compiling national economics, national economics. Goods and failure to identify transfer payments. This leads to exaggerated national income figures. 7. Problem of estimating net income from abroad. It is difficult to get information on the incomes earned by nationals working abroad and on incomes of foreigners living within the country. This leads to inaccurate national income figures. 8. Inadequate facilities and equipment to use, i.e., during collecting, organizing, summarizing, analyzing and interpreting data. For example, there is shortage of funds and computers required to carry out the exercise successfully. 9. Difficulty in determining government expenditure. Where the expenditure approach is used, it is difficult to estimate government expenditure, since government provides a number of services like education, healthcare, transport, police and military services, among others. 10. Problem of valuing subsistence output, non-marketed output. It is difficult to estimate the monetary value of output produced for one's own consumption, since it does not pass through the market. 10. Problem of valuing inventories and work in progress. All changes in inventories, whether positive or negative, are included during national income estimation. The value of changes in inventories is added or subtracted from the current production of the firm. However, it is also difficult to value the stock of unsold goods and economics, national economics. Identical results. Theoretically, the three methods are supposed to yield the same results, i.e., O identical to E identical to Y. The identical results can be illustrated by the circular flow of income and expenditure. The circular flow of income in a two-sector model, closed economy/autarky. The circular flow of income describes how income in a two-sector model flows between households and business firms. The household sector receives income from the business sector in return for the facts or services provided. The business sector receives income from the household sector in return for the goods and services produced. Assumptions of the circular flow of income. There are only two sectors in the economy, that is the household sector consumers and business sector producers. The household sector is the only owner and supplier of factors of production. The business firms are the only producers and suppliers of goods and services. All incomes received by households are spent on buying goods and services produced by the business firms. All incomes earned by the business firms are spent on hiring factors of production provided by the households. Economics, national economics. Illustration of the circular flow of income in a two-sector model. The diagram above indicates the two sectors, and the interrelationship between them is indicated by the arrows. The household sector supplies factors of production to the business firms as indicated by arrow 1, flow of productive resources. Arrow 2 shows the supply of goods and services by the business sector to the household sector, flow of commodities. Arrows 1 and 2 thus indicate real flow. Arrow 3 shows the expenditure by business firms on buying the factors of production from the household sector. This arrow represents the factor incomes to the household sector in form of wages, interest, rent and profits. Arrow 4 indicates the payment for goods and services by the household. Money is moving from the household sector to the business sector. The receipts obtained by the business sector are equal to what the households have spent on these goods and services. Arrows 3 and 4 indicate monetary flows between households and the business sector. Null. In producing goods and services, business firms employ the services of factors of production supplied by the households. Whatever the firm spends on factor services should be the same as income got from selling goods and services produced using the factors of production, thus output. Economics, national economics. Is identical income O identical to Y? This is based on the assumption that whatever is produced is sold to the households. Expenditure by the households should be equal to what they obtain as factor incomes from the business firms, thus E identical to Y. This is based on the assumption that whatever is earned by the household as income is spent on purchasing goods and services. Therefore, it can be concluded that the three approaches of measuring national income, expenditure and product approach should give the same figures unless there are errors in the calculations such as errors of omission. Assignment of what is meant by autarky. B. Outline 3 demerits of autarky. Income distribution. Income distribution refers to how the total national income of an economy is divided among the total population. In many countries, income is unevenly distributed. There is always an economic gap between the rich and the poor in the society. This gap constitutes what we call income inequality or income disparity or uneven distribution of income. Income inequality. Income inequality refers to a state of imbalance in income distribution resulting in coexistence between the rich and the poor in the same social economic setup in a country. Types of income inequality. 1. Regional/geographical inequality. This is inequality between different areas of an economy brought about by uneven distribution of resources, social and economic infrastructures. 2. Sectoral inequality. This is inequality between different sectors of an economy. For example, people employed in the industrial sector earn more than those in peasantry agriculture. 3. Intrasectoral inequality. This is where within the same sector, some people are richer than others. For example, within the agricultural sector, there is commercial agriculture with high incomes and subsistence farming with low incomes. Economics, national economics. This is where some individuals have high incomes while others have low incomes due to differences in skills, talents, gender, nature of occupation, etc. Causes of income inequality. 1. Uneven distribution of natural resources / variation in the natural resource distribution. People in areas with abundant natural resources such as fertile land, reliable climate and mineral resources use them to generate high incomes and become better off, unlike those in areas with few resources who earn low incomes. 2. Differences in the level of education and skills. Highly trained and skilled people receive higher incomes from employment compared to those people with low levels of training who earn low incomes. This is because the highly educated and skilled people are more efficient than those who are not. 3. Differences in the quality of the output produced. Individuals or business people who produce better quality products earn more income compared to those whose products are of a poor quality. This is because better quality products attract more customers who are willing to pay the price of the commodity. 4. Differences in family/social background. People from rich families have higher chances of inheriting wealth and using family influence to get well-paying jobs as compared to their counterparts from poor families. 5. Differences in talents and other natural abilities. Individuals who are naturally talented, e.g. musicians, footballers, etc. tend to earn high. Economics, national economics. 7. Differences in elasticity of labor supply. Labor force which is inelastic in supply, such as doctors and engineers, earns more incomes than labor force which is elastic in supply, for example sweepers. This is because it is not easy to limit entry of unskilled and semi-skilled labor into an occupation by specifying minimum entry requirements, hence making it hard to negotiate for high incomes. 8. Differences in the bargaining strength of trade unions. Strong and well-organized trade unions are in position to negotiate for a higher pay for their members compared to weak and disorganized trade unions. 9. Differences in the bargaining strength of individuals. Workers with strong bargaining power for incomes are paid highly than workers with weak bargaining power for incomes even when they have the same qualifications and do the same job, hence causing income inequality. 10. Variations in employers' ability and willingness to pay. Workers in organizations with greater ability and willingness to pay earn more than those whose employers are unable and unwilling to meet their wage payments. E.g., people working in NGOs earn more than those in government. 11. Discrimination in the labor market based on religion, race, sex, tribe, political affiliation, appearance, etc. Workers who are favored because of their tribe, race, etc. earn higher incomes than those who are less favored even when they have the same qualifications and are performing the same tasks. 12. Variations in accessibility to developed infrastructures. Places with well-developed and maintained infrastructures like better roads attract investment opportunities from which people earn high incomes, while areas with poor infrastructure have less investment activities, and this leads to low incomes in such areas. 13. Differences in the nature of occupation and risks. Some jobs are more risky than others, and people employed in more risky jobs such as mines and quarries tend to earn higher incomes than those in less risky jobs like office management. This is to compensate for the risk they are exposed to. 14. Differences in the number of hours worked. Economics, national economics. 15. Differences in the quantity of output produced. People are hard-working and produce large amounts of output to earn higher incomes than those who are lazy and produce small amounts of output where the piece rate method of payment is used. 16. Differences in the cost of living. People who work in areas with high cost of living such as urban centres earn more than those in areas with low cost of living, e.g., rural areas. This is because people living in areas with high cost of living need more money to survive than people who work in areas with low cost of living who need less money to survive. 17. Differences in the political climate. People who live in areas which are politically unstable earn lower incomes because they fear to effectively engage in production due to fear of loss of their lives and property, while people who live in areas that are politically stable earn higher incomes because they engage in production on a large scale due to assured security of their lives and property. 18. Political influence in the allocation of resources in favor of certain regions/sectors. The government can deliberately plan to develop certain regions and sectors faster as compared to others. Therefore, people who live in areas which are favored become richer because they have access to national resources, and people who live in areas which are not favored and thus have little access to national resources. 19. Non-matching wage policies by the employers, i.e., wages are not uniform. Economics, national economics. Advantages of income inequality. 1. Income inequality makes labor affordable. Income inequality leads to provision of cheap labor to employers since the poor are willing to work at low wages, hence encouraging investment/production. 2. Income inequality guarantees supply of cheap labor, especially for unattractive jobs like sweeping and toilet cleaning, since the poor are willing to work in any kind of employment so as to earn a living. 3. It encourages labor to work in risky areas and enterprises such as mines and quarries. This is because the poor are ready to work in any kind of employment so as to earn a living. 4. Income inequality establishes a good relationship between employers and the employees. This is because poor employees have respect for their rich employers because they fear to lose their jobs. 5. Income inequality encourages hard work among the poor so as to attain a standard of living enjoyed by their rich counterparts. This leads to more output produced in the long run. 6. It encourages geographical mobility of labor. The poor are ready and willing to move from one place to another in search for better employment opportunities. 7. Income inequality awakens the government to its responsibilities. Income inequality forces the government to design policies and come up with income-generating activities to reduce inequality. Such include subsidizing the poor and distributing resources in the economy. 8. Attracts international funding agencies to support the lagging sectors where majority of the disadvantaged are found. International agencies usually give their assistance to lagging sectors to uplift their performance and ensure a fair distribution of income in an economy. 9. It encourages utilization of resources in an economy where majority of the people are rich. This results into production of more goods and services, hence high rates of economic growth. 10. High level of savings. Where majority of the people are rich, savings are high because the rich have a high marginal propensity to save. 11. Income inequality promotes investment in a country. Where majority are rich, there are economics, national economics. Later invested, and this increases employment opportunities and output levels, hence economic growth and development. 12. It generates a lot of revenue to the government. Where the majority of the people are rich, government generates more revenue through the use of progressive taxation under which the rich are taxed highly so as to reduce their disposable income. 13. High incomes earned by professionals encourage them to work within the country. This reduces brain drain and its negative effects on production in form of loss of human capital need for development. 14. It provides market for goods of ostentation which are usually consumed by the rich. Such goods are always demanded because they act as status symbols for the rich. Disadvantages of income inequality. 1. It leads to low aggregate demand in an economy in case majority of the people are poor, hence discouraging production of goods and services. 2. It leads to unemployment and underutilization of resources. This is the case with our few people with incomes to engage in productive activities. 3. It breeds apathy among the poor. Income inequality reduces the morale among the poor, causing disinterestedness in work. This leads to production of poor quality goods and low standards of living among the poor. 4. It leads to low savings when majority are poor. This discourages investment, leading to a low economic growth rate. 5. The income inequality limits investment where majority of the people are poor. Income inequality is associated with the vicious circle of poverty, that is, the low incomes lead to low savings, which leads to capital accumulation, and this finally leads to low investment. 6. That leads to low government revenue generated. This is the case when majority of the people in an economy are poor and thus have no incomes on which taxes can be levied. 7. It leads to increase in social crimes like prostitution, murder, theft and children's sacrifice. Poor resort to such acts so as to earn a living. This increases government expenditure on eradication of such evils in an economy. 8. The income inequality leads to emergence of monopolies with their negative effects such as exploitation of consumers through overcharging, production of poor quality goods and price. Economics, national economics. 9. It leads to exploitation of the poor by the rich. The rich employers pay low wages to the desperate poor employees. 10. It encourages brain drain. This is where the highly skilled manpower migrates to developed countries in search for greener pastures. This leads to manpower problems in developing countries. 11. It strains the government budget. The government incurs heavy expenditure in subsidizing the poor through provision of social services such as education and medical care. 12. Government planning becomes difficult. This is because income inequality creates a number of social and economic classes of people with diverse needs. 13. Income inequality results in unpopularity of the government and power. This is because poor blame the government for the low standards of living in the economy. This increases political tension in the country. 14. It encourages disunity among people, resulting into social classes. This increases social tension between the rich and the poor in the society, making it difficult to mobilize all people for development purposes. 15. It leads to rural-urban migration. The high incomes earned by people living in urban areas attract people to move from rural areas to towns. This leads to negative consequences such as congestion, high crime rate, gambling, slum development, etc. 16. Income inequality distorts resource allocation. Productive resources are allocated to production of luxuries highly demanded by the rich and production of basic commodities. Economics, national economics. Measures that should be taken to control income inequality. In Uganda. 1. Carry out education reforms. The government should change the education system so as to train job creators instead of job seekers. This can be achieved through having programs that provide relevant training and practical skills required in the job market. Such skills include training in the fields of tailoring, carpentry, entrepreneurship skills, building and construction, etc. 2. Carry out land tenure reforms. The government should attempt to reform the land tenure system to allow the landless have access to land. This can be attained through making amendments in the Land Act to outlaw eviction of squatters by landlords without compensation. This can encourage people to have long-term income earning plans for land use. Land can also act as collateral security to acquire loans from financial institutions. 3. Use of progressive taxation. The government should tax highly the rich through pay-as-you-earn pay, and the income generated should be used to provide services to the poor, for example provision of universal education. This can narrow the gap between the rich and the poor in an economy. 4. Improving basic infrastructure. The government should improve basic infrastructure like roads to ease transportation of raw materials to production centres and finished goods to market centres. This can encourage economics, national economics. 7. Control population growth rates. The government should encourage the use of family planning methods to reduce the birth rates and consequently reduce the dependence burden. This can increase the level of savings in an economy, which may lead to an increase in the level of investment. 8. Modernize agriculture. The government should undertake research so as to come up with varieties of crops that are resistant to pests and diseases in order to increase agricultural output in the country. This can improve the incomes of farmers, thereby narrowing the gap between those engaged in agriculture and other occupations. 9. Diversify the economy. The government should develop many sectors in order to reduce dependence on only one sector. The government can encourage growth of sectors such as mining, industry, fishing and tourism in order to increase the rate of job creation. 10. Provide tax incentives to investors. The government should encourage foreign investment through provision of investment incentives to foreign investors in form of tax holidays and tax exemptions. This can lead to increasing investment and creation of income-earning opportunities to the people. 11. Providing credit facilities, for example, startup capital, especially to the poor. The government should develop the service sector, that is, the microfinance institutions, commercial banks and other credit schemes such that soft loans can be provided to the poor, to enable them establish income-generating projects. This may lead to breakdown of the vicious cycle of poverty, hence reducing income inequality among the people. 12. Improve the political atmosphere. The government should create a peaceful political atmosphere in all parts of the country to reduce disruption of production activities, displacement of settled people and destruction of social and economic infrastructure. This can encourage investment, hence an increase in income earning opportunities. 13. Encourage development of small-scale enterprises. The government should encourage the setting up of small-scale enterprises like grain milling industries, metal fabrication among others. Establishment of such industries may increase economics, national economics. 14. The government should come up with rural development policies. Such policies may include rural electrification, development of small-scale industries and improvement of social and economic infrastructure in rural areas. This can reduce the rural-urban imbalances. 15. The government should empower the disadvantaged groups in the society, especially the women and the physically handicapped. This may be done through provision of special employment skills like shoemaking, tailoring, craftsmaking to such groups, and provision of affordable credit for them to start income-generating projects that increase their income. 16. Undertake minimum wage legislation. The government should fix the wage rate above the equilibrium wage to increase the wages of low-income earners, and it should constantly revise it in order to match price changes in the economy. A minimum wage can reduce the income gap between wage earners. 17. The government should ensure proper resource allocation and management of funds. This can help to reduce corruption and embezzlement of government funds meant for creation of income-earning opportunities. No. A soft loan, one with very low interest rate and long repayment period *. Guiding questions. 1. They. Define the term income inequality. 1 mark. They. Outline any 3 forms of income inequality. 3 marks. Chin. Account for the uneven distribution of income in your country. 10 marks. They. What are the demerits of income inequality? 10 marks. 3. Why are there income variations among individuals in developing countries? 10 marks. They. Suggest measures that should be taken to reduce uneven income distribution in developing countries. 10 marks. Assignment. 1. What measures have been adopted to minimize uneven distribution of income in Uganda? 2. What measures are being taken to minimize uneven distribution of income in Uganda? Economics, national economics. National income and standard of living. Standard of living is the measure of the socio-economic well-being of an individual/society as represented by the basket of goods consumed. Or, standard of living is the condition of life in which people live or hope to live. No. The term well-being, welfare, means the state of mind which reflects happiness and satisfaction of an individual. Therefore, welfare is taken to be part of standard of living. Determinants/indicators of standard of living in an economy. 1. Income per capita/level of income. High per capita income leads to improved standard of living since people have enough income to afford more goods and services, thereby making life more comfortable, and low per capita income limits the amount and quality of goods and services consumed, thereby leading to low standard of living. 2. Level of employment/employment status. High levels of employment increase people's income levels, thereby increasing their standard of living in an economy, while high levels of unemployment lead to low income levels and low standard of living. 3. Degree of political freedom. Economies characterized by high levels of political dictatorship tend to deny people their freedom, e.g., exercising democracy, freedom of speech, worship, and movement, leading to low standard of living, while economies where individuals enjoy a lot of freedom, e.g., high levels of democracy, freedom of speech, worship, and movement, are associated with high living standard of the people. 4. Prevailing political atmosphere/climate. Political stability enables individuals to enjoy comfortable lives because they have peace of mind and security, hence high standard of living. On the other hand, political instability makes individuals to live uncomfortable lives full of misery, worry, and suffering, hence low standard of living. Or, economics, national economics. Political stability encourages high production of goods and services, thereby improving living standards in an economy, while political instability scares away investors, resulting into low levels of production in an economy, which lowers standard of living. 5. The general price level in an economy/rate of inflation. Increase in the general price level lowers the quality and amount of goods and services consumed by people, thereby lowering standard of living, while a decrease in the general price level increases the amount of goods and services consumed by people, which leads to better standard of living. 6. Nature of goods produced, i.e. capital goods or consumer goods. Increased production of consumer goods leads to direct improvement of welfare of the People hence better living standard, while increased production of capital goods leads to low levels of welfare of the people because capital goods do not provide direct satisfaction to consumers. 7. Quality and quantity of goods produced. Poor quality and low quantity of goods and services produced results into low standard of living, while high quality and large amount of goods and services produced and consumed improves the people's standard of living. 8. Level of environmental pollution. High level of pollution creates a bad environment that affects people's health, which lowers the welfare of people, while low levels of pollution create a good environment which results into improved people's welfare. 9. Availability of time for leisure. More time spent at work make people to overwork themselves, and this lowers their standard of living, while more time given for leisure increases people's welfare since people have some rest. 10. Nature of income distribution. High level of income inequality, where the majority of the people are poor, lowers the quality and the amount of goods and services consumed, hence poor standard of living, while fair distribution of income improves people's standard of living since majority of the people have access to goods and services. Economics. National economics. High government expenditure on unproductive activities like buying cars for members of Parliament, MPs and ministers limits the amount of goods and services in an economy, thereby lowering living standard, while proper allocation of resources to productive activities like health and education leads to large output of goods and services, which improves the living standard. 12. The working conditions/occupational hazards. Favorable working conditions like provision of welfare facilities results in improved standard of living, while increased occupational hazards result into low standard of living since they put the workers' lives at risk. 13. Level of education and skills. High level of literacy results into large quantities of better quality goods and services produced and consumed, which improves living standard in an economy, while low levels of education and skills result into poor quality output, which lowers living standard in an economy. 14. Level of development of infrastructure. Well-developed infrastructure like better road network and communication systems encourage production of more goods and services, hence improve social welfare of the people, while poor infrastructure in form of poor road network and communication facilities discourage production of goods and services, hence low social welfare of the people. 15. Level of technology use. Use of modern/advanced technology in the production simplifies work, increases output and improves the quality of the output, leads hence high standard of living, while use of rudimentary technology leads to low quantity and quality of output produced, hence low standard of living. Indicators of low standard of living in an economy. Low income per capita/levels of income. High rate of unemployment/low levels of employment. Limited degree of political freedom/political persecution. Political instability. High price levels/high rate of inflation. Economics. National economics. Poor quality and low quantity of goods produced. High level of environmental degradation. Limited leisure enjoyed. Uneven/unfair income distribution. High government expenditure on unproductive activities. Unfavorable working conditions/high levels of occupational hazards. Low levels of education/high rate of illiteracy. Poor infrastructure. Low levels of technology. Per capita income. Per capita income refers to income per person/head. Or is the average income of the population in the country in a given period of time. It is obtained by dividing national income by the total population. Letter 1 D443, letter 1 D45, letter 1 D45F, letter 1 D450, letter 1 D44, letter 1 D45D, letter 1 D456, letter 1 D461, letter 1 D43, letter 1 D456, letter 1 D45B, letter 1 D450, letter 1 D45C, letter 1 D45, letter 1 D452 equals letter 1 D43, letter 1 D437, letter 1 D443, letter 1 D447, letter 1 D456, letter 1 D461, letter 1 D443, letter 1 D459, letter 1 D443, letter 1 D45, letter 1 D45D, letter 1 D46, letter 1 D459, letter 1 D443, letter 1 D441, letter 1 D44C, letter 1 D447, letter 1 D45, letter 1 D461, letter 1 D43, letter 1 D459, letter 1 D452, letter 1 D45, letter 1 D45D, letter 1 D46, letter 1 D459, letter 1 D43. Uses of per capita income. 1. Used as an indicator of standard of living within a country. High per capita income implies high standards of living, while low per capita income implies low standards of living. 2. Used for comparing standard of living in a country over time, i.e., comparing whether the people were better off in one year as compared to another year within a country. 3. Used for comparing standard of living between countries, e.g., determining whether an average Kenyan is better off than an average Ugandan. 4. Used to indicate the average income per person within a country. This helps to determine the number of individuals living below the international poverty line. 5. Used to determine the rate of economic growth within a country. Economics. National economics. Reasons why per capita income may not be a good indicator. Standard of living / limitations of using per capita income as an indicator of standard of living. 1. It does not take into account the distribution of national income. Per capita income figure may be high when there is a high degree of income inequality in the economy, i.e., when incomes are concentrated in the hands of few individuals and majority of the population is poor. 2. It does not take into account the pattern of expenditure in the country. A country may be spending a large proportion of its budget on defense, military hardware, and maintaining a large army. Therefore, the standard of living of the people may remain low despite the high per capita income figures arising from government spending. 3. It does not take into account the type of goods produced. Per capita income figures may be high, but when the economy is producing large volumes of capital goods at the expense of consumer goods, yet capital goods do not directly improve people's welfare. 4. It does not consider the amount of leisure foregone. Per capita income figures may be high, but when high output levels are as a result of overworking labor which does not reflect a high standard of living. 5. It does not take into account the working conditions of the people. Individuals working in very risky places like mines are exposed to occupational hazards which are likely to reduce their welfare despite the high per capita income figure in the country. 6. It does not consider the price levels/rate of inflation. Per capita income figures may be high as a result of high commodity prices in the economy. High prices reduce real income of the consumers, hence reduce standard of living. For this matter, per capita income may not be a good indicator of standard of living. 7. It does not take into account the political climate in the country. Per capita income figures may be high, but when some parts of the country are experiencing political instabilities and economic welfare is poor in such areas. Economics, national economics. Per capita income figures may be high, but when the goods and services produced and consumed by the people in the economy are of poor quality. Poor quality goods and services reduce people's welfare, hence per capita income may not be a good indicator of standard of living. 9. It does not consider social costs like pollution. Per capita income's figure may be high, but when the economy is exposed to negative externalities such as pollution, land, water, air and noise. Such negative externalities reduce people's welfare despite high per capita incomes. 10. Per capita income does not reflect the level of unemployment in the country. Per capita income figures may be high as a result of using capital-intensive techniques of production. These techniques result into increased output but employ very few individuals. Majority of the people go without jobs. 11. Per capita income may be high as a result of overestimating national income figures and underestimating population figures. This does not necessarily imply high standards of living. 12. It does not consider the subsistence output. Per capita income may be low due to the presence of a large subsistence sector. Output from the subsistence sector may not be included when estimating national income, yet goods and services produced under this sector contribute to the welfare of the people. Reasons why per capita income figure is a poor measure of standard of living in an economy over time / limitations of using per capita income to measure standard of living in an economy over time. 1. It ignores changes in the boundary of production over time. Over time, the boundary of production changes as new items appear on the market while others disappear due to changes in the pattern of demand. Because of such variations over time, the per capita income figure may change, but when the standard of living might have not changed. 2. It ignores changes in the price level in the country over time. Some years may experience high prices inflation while other years prices may be low. And economics, national economics. Low. In years when prices are low and stable, per capita income figures tend to be low, yet the standard of living is high. 3. It ignores changes in the levels of accuracy and data collection over time. Over time, methods of collecting data improve. In such a case, per capita income figures tend to increase. However, this does not necessarily mean improved standards of living. 4. It ignores changes in the size of the subsistence sector over time. As the size of the subsistence sector reduces, the commercial sector expands. This leads to higher per capita income figures, yet the standard of living may be low. When the subsistence sector is large, per capita income is low, yet the standard of living may be high. 5. It ignores changes in the distribution of income over time. Over time, per capita income may be high, but when there is widespread income inequality, which does not imply improvement in welfare. 6. It ignores changes in the political climate prevailing in the country over time. Over time, per capita income may be high, but when there are political unrest in the country which makes people live uncomfortable lives full of misery, worry and suffering, hence low standard of living. 7. It ignores changes in the amount of leisure forgone over time. Over time, per capita may be high, yet the people are working for long hours. This does not imply improvement in welfare. 8. It ignores changes in the quality of goods produced over time. Over time, per capita income may be high, but when people are purchasing poor quality goods leading to low standards of living. 9. It ignores changes in the level of taxation over time. Over time, per capita income may be high, but when the government is charging high direct taxes that lowered the income available for consumption, hence low standard of living. 10. It ignores changes in taste and preferences over time. With time, people's tastes and preferences for certain commodities may become favorable, hence high per capita income figures yet with low standards of living. 11. It ignores changes in the rate of unemployment over time. Over time, per capita income may be low, but when the rate of unemployment is low, which? Economics, national economics. 12. It ignores changes in the nature/type of goods produced over time. Over time, per capita income may be high, yet there is increased production of capital goods which do not directly improve people's welfare. 13. It ignores changes in the social cost, e.g., pollution over time. Over time, per capita income may be high, but when society experiences high rates of pollution from the numerous economic activities which implies low levels of welfare. 14. It ignores changes in the pattern of government expenditure over time. Over time, per capita income may be high, but when there is increased expenditure on military weapons rather than merit goods. This does not imply better standards of living within a country. 15. It ignores changes in the degree of freedom over time. Over time, per capita income may be high, but when the economy is characterized by high levels of political dictatorship that tend to deny people their freedom, e.g., exercising democracy, freedom of speech, worship and movement, leading to low standard of living. 16. It ignores changes in working conditions or level of occupational hazards over time. Over time, per capita income may be high, but when workers are faced with increased occupational hazards, hence poor welfare. Limitations of using per capita income figures to compare standards of living between countries. 1. They do not consider differences in the boundary of production between countries. Economics, national economics. Per capita income figures in most countries, especially LDCs, are inaccurate due to inaccurate population and national income estimates. This makes a wrong basis for international comparison. 4. They ignore differences in the method used to measure national income between countries. Most LDCs use the output approach, while developed countries use income or expenditure approach. The per capita income figures may be high when a country uses the expenditure approach instead of the output approach. The high expenditures may be as a result of high prices of goods and services, which does not reflect high standards of living. 5. They do not consider differences in price levels between countries. Different countries experience different price levels. The per capita income figures of one country may be high when the general price level of goods and services in the country is high. This does not necessarily imply high standard of living, but high cost of living. 6. They ignore differences in political climate between countries. Some countries are politically stable while others are politically unstable, and thus comparing the two is hard, since the unstable country may have high per capita income figures yet with low standard of living. 7. They ignore differences in tastes and preferences between countries. People in different countries tend to have different tastes and preferences. The per capita income of one country may be high when the goods and services produced in that country do not meet the tastes and preferences of consumers. 8. They ignore differences in requirements between countries due to climatic differences. Countries that experience severe climatic conditions such as winter spend highly on warm clothing, winter coats, heating equipment, etc., and this leads to high per capita income figures, but this does not mean high standards of living as opposed to countries with tropical climate where people do not need such items. 9. They do not take into consideration differences in the size of the subsistence sector between countries. Different countries have different sizes of the subsistence sector. Developing countries have a larger subsistence sector as compared to developed countries, and thus have low per capita. Economics, national economics. 10. They do not consider differences in production and transport costs between countries. Countries experience different transport costs, e.g., landlocked countries always experience high transport costs. High transport costs raise the market price of commodities, leading to high per capita income figures, but this does not necessarily imply better standards of living of the people as compared to countries with low transport costs. 11. They do not take into account differences in the nature of income distribution among the people between countries. Per capita income figures may be high in one country, but when income is unevenly distributed, i.e. concentrated in a few hands, with the majority of people being poor, which does not reflect high standards of living, yet in another country per capita income may be low. But when income is fairly distributed and thus people are enjoying high standards of living. 12. They do not consider differences in quality of goods produced between countries. The quality of goods produced is not the same between countries. Per capita income figures may be high in one country, yet there are poor quality goods produced which does not reflect high standards of living. 13. They ignore differences in the amount of leisure enjoyed between different countries. Per capita income figures may be high in a country where people overwork and do not enjoy leisure, which lowers their living standards. However, per capita income figures may be low in another country where people are having time to enjoy leisure and therefore their living standards are high. 14. They do not consider differences in the levels of employment between countries. Per capita income figures may be high in one country, but when there are high rates of unemployment in that country due to use of capital-intensive techniques of production, this does not imply better standards of living in that country. 15. They do not consider differences in the value of currencies coupled with the problem of exchange rates between countries. Per capita income figures are measured in monetary terms and countries use different currencies, e.g. Uganda uses the shilling and Nigeria uses the naira. To compare per capita income figures of different countries, one common currency like the dollar should be used. However, the exchange rates are not the same and thus a comparison of living standards. Economics, national economics. 16. They do not consider differences in the nature/type of goods produced between countries. Per capita income figures may be high in a country due to production of mainly capital goods which do not directly improve people's standards of living and low in another where there is more production of consumer goods. 17. They ignore differences in the nature of government expenditure between countries. Per capita income figures may be high in a country that spends a lot on non-productive projects which do not contribute directly to people's welfare, e.g. expenditure on military hardware. However, per capita income may be low in another country that spends more on merit goods like safe water, healthcare, education, etc. that improve on people's welfare. 18. They ignore differences in the levels of taxation between countries. High levels of taxation lead to low standards of living despite high per capita income figures. 19. They ignore differences in social costs between countries. Per capita income figures may be high in a country where social costs such as pollution exist, which does not imply better standards of living than where the social costs are low. The cost of living and price index. Cost of living refers to the amount of money required by an individual to sustain a lifestyle he/she is accustomed to. The cost of living is determined by the value of money. Value of money is the amount of goods and services that a unit of money can purchase. The higher the quantity of goods and services that a unit of money can purchase, the higher the value of money, and the reverse is true. The value of money depends on the price level in an economy. An increase in the price level leads to a fall in the value of money and vice versa. This is because as the price increases, a unit of money purchases less units of a commodity. A change in the cost of living implies a change in the standard of living. An increase in the cost of living leads to a decline in the standard of living, and the converse is true. Changes in the cost of living are measured using price indices. Price index. Price index is the figure which measures the relative changes in the prices of goods in economics, national economics. Consumer Price Index. Cost of living index is the measure of the relative changes in the price level in an economy in the current year as compared to the base year based on changes in the prices of selected consumer goods and services. Terms used in price indices. 1. Base year. This refers to the year in which prices are relatively stable as compared to other years. The base year is assigned an index of 100, which is a conventional figure that serves to indicate that prices were stable in that year. 2. Current year. This is a year selected for comparison with the base year. 3. Basket of goods. This is a collection of items or commodities to be used in the computation of the price index. The basket of goods consists of items that are consumed by a majority of the individuals in an economy/society under consideration. The items included in the basket are sampled from the market. For instance, the basket of goods may comprise of food items like maize, rice, beans and cassava. 4. Weight. This refers to the relative importance customers attach to particular commodities in the selected basket. The commodities are given this importance using numerical values like 1, 2, 3, 4. The most important commodity in the basket is assigned the weight of 1. The second important is assigned the weight of 2, and the sequence continues in that order. 5. Price relative simple price index. This is a figure which measures the relative changes in the price of a single commodity between the base year and the current year. Procedure for computing price indices. Cost of living index. 1. Selection of a base year in which prices of goods were relatively stable, giving the base year an index of 100. 2. Selection of a basket of goods and services consumed by a typical family. 3. Getting prices of goods in the basket both in the base year and current year. 4. Calculation of price relatives for each commodity. Simple price index using the formula. Economics, national economics. Lit 1d45 lit 1d45 f 1d456 lit 1d450 lit 1d452 lit 1d45 f 1d45 lit 1d459 lit 1d44 lit 1d46 1 lit 1d456 lit 1d46 lit 1d446 lit 1d45 lit 1d45 lit 1d459 lit 1d452 lit 1d452 lit 1d45 f 1d456 lit 1d450 lit 1d452 lit 1d456 lit 1d45 b lit 1d451 lit 1d45 lit 1d465 equals lit 1d46 lit 1d4 to lit 1d45 f lit 1d45 f lit 1d45 to lit 1d45 b lit 1d466 lit 1d45 to lit 1d43 lit 1d45 f lit 1d45 t lit 1d45 f lit 1d456 lit 1d450 lit 1d452 lit 1d4p5 lit 1d43 lit 1d460 lit 1d452 lit 1d466 lit 1d45 to lit 1d43 lit 1d45 f lit 1d45 d lit 1d45 f lit 1d456 lit 1d452 lit 1d452 times 100. 5. Calculating the average price relative/average simple price index using the formula. ASP, I equals summation of price relatives. Number of commodities. 6. The attachment of weights to each commodity in the basket. The weight simply indicates the relative importance the consumers attach to the commodities. 7. Calculation of the weighted index for each commodity using the formula. Letter 1D44, letter 1D45, to letter 1D456, letter 1D454, letter 210, letter 1D461, letter 1D456, letter 1D45B, letter 1D451, letter 1D45, to letter 1D465 equals letter 1D443, letter 1D45F, letter 1D456, letter 1D450, letter 1D452, letter 1D45F, letter 1D45, to letter 1D459, letter 1D440, letter 1D461, letter 1D456 times letter 1D44, letter 1D45, to letter 1D456, letter 1D454, letter 210, letter 1D46. 8. Calculation of the average weighted index for the year using the formula. 8W, I equals summation of weighted index. Summation of weights. Worked example. 1. Study the table below and answer the questions that follow. Commodity. Base year prices 2005. Base year indices. Prices 2006. Weights. P. 200. 100. 150. 4. Q. 250, 100, 300, 1, R, 150, 100, 240, 3, S, 400, 100, 400, 5, T, 300, 100, 450, 2. Calculate the I. Price relative for each commodity in 2006. 5 marks Roman 2. Weighted index for each commodity 5 marks Roman 3. Simple price index for 2006 2 marks Roman 4. Weighted index for 2006 2 marks. Trial questions. 1. Study the table below showing commodity prices for selected items 2000 and 2004 and answer questions that follow. Commodity. Average price index 2000. Simple index 2000. Average price 2000 SHS. Economics National Economics SHS 1000 100 1200 2 800 100 1000 4 C 400 100 650 3 T 750 100 900 5 A 1500 100 1800 1. Calculate I. The simple index for 2004 6 marks. Roman 2. Weighted index for 2004 6 marks. 2. Study the table below showing a country's price indices and answer the questions which follow. Commodity. kg/liters. 1990. Average. Price. SHS. 1990. Simple. Price index. 1995. Average. Price. SHS. 1995. Simple. Price index. Weighted index. Sugar kg. 800. 100. 1000. 3. Salt kg. 450. 100. 600. 5. Maize kg. 220. 100. 400. 6. Meat kg. 700. 100. 1200. 2. Fuel L. 550. 100. 950. 5. Calculate I. The simple price index for 1995 3 marks Roman 2. Weighted price index for 1995 3 marks Roman 3. Average weighted price index for 1995 2 marks. 3. Study the table below and answer the questions that follow. Commodity. Base year. Prices 2010. Base year. Simple index. Current year. Prices. Weight. Sugar kg. 1500. Economics National Economics. Rice kg. 1200. 100. 1500. 2. Bread kg. 1200. 100. 1500. 1. Calculate I. Simple price index 4 marks Roman 2. Average price index 2 marks Roman 3. Weighted price index for the year 2013 2 marks. Uses/importance of computing price indices in an economy. 1. They are used in measuring changes in the value of money, i.e., whether there was inflation or deflation. An increase in price indices indicates rising prices of commodities, hence there is a fall in the value of money. A decrease in the price indices indicates a decrease in price of commodities, and this shows an increase in the value of money. 2. They are used to determine the cost of living. A price index which is above 100 indicates a rise in the cost of living. However, a price index which is below 100 indicates a fall in the cost of living. 3. They help in comparing the cost of living of the people in a country over time. 4. They help in comparing the cost of living between countries. 5. They are used in wage determination, as wages may vary with the cost of living index. Certain organizations determine their wages according to the cost of living index. An increase in price indices above 100 indicates a rise in the cost of living. This compels the employers to increase the wages of the workers to cope with the rising cost of living. 6. They are used in determining tax rates. As price indices increase, the cost of living also increases. The government may reduce direct taxes to increase disposable incomes of the people. This is intended to enable people to survive during the period of rising cost of living. However, as price indices decrease, direct taxes can be increased since there is a fall in the cost of living. 7. They are used to measure the terms of trade of a country. Economics, national economics. To change nominal GDP to real GDP, we use a special index known as GDP deflator given as letter 1 D445, letter 1 D45 to letter 1 D43, letter 1 D459, letter 1 D43, letter 1 D4V7, letter 1 D443 equals letter 1 D441, letter 1 D45C, letter 1 D45A, letter 1 D456, letter 1 D45B, letter 1 D43, letter 1 D4VA, letter 1 D437, letter 1 D443. Letter 1 D4VA, letter 1 D437, letter 1 D443, letter 1 D437, letter 1 D452, letter 1 D453, letter 1 D459, letter 1 D440, letter 1 D461 times 100 equals letter 1 D441, letter 1 D455C, letter 1 D458, letter 1 D456, letter 1 D455B, letter 1 D443, letter 1 D4VA, letter 1 D437, letter 1 D443. Letter 1 D443, letter 1 D45F, letter 1 D456, letter 1 D450, letter 1 D452, letter 1 D456, letter 1 D450, letter 1 D451, letter 1 D452, letter 1 D465 times 100. Example. Even nominal GDP of SHS 100 and a price index of 144. Calculate the real GDP. Solution. Letter 1 D445, letter 1 D452, letter 1 D443, letter 1 D459, letter 1 D438, letter 1 D437, letter 1 D443 equals letter 1 D441, letter 1 D450, letter 1 D458, letter 1 D456, letter 1 D45B, letter 1 D443, letter 1 D4VA, letter 1 D437, letter 1 D443. Letter 1 D443, letter 1 D45F, letter 1 D456, letter 1 D450, letter 1 D452, letter 1 D456, letter 1 D445B, letter 1 D451, letter 1 D452, letter 1 D465 times 100 equals letter 1 D460, letter 210, letter 1 D460. 100. 144 times 100, letter 1 D45A equals letter 1 D460, letter 210, letter 1 D460, 69.FOUR, letter 1 D45A. Exercise. Given that nominal gross domestic product is SHS 150 billion and the consumer price index is 105, calculate the real gross domestic product. Problems encountered when measuring consumer price index. In Uganda. 1. Difficulty in getting a suitable base year where prices are relatively stable. Prices of commodities are ever-changing, making it difficult to get a reliable base year which can be used in computing the price index. 2. Difficulty in selecting a representative basket of goods. Individuals consume different commodities. Therefore, it becomes difficult to select a range of goods consumed by all people. As a result, the price index computed using such a basket does not indicate valid cost of living index for the general population. 3. Difficulty in attaching weights to goods in the basket. Consumers attach different degrees of importance to different commodities. Similar commodities may be given different weights depending on the consumer's tastes and preferences. This complicates the process of economics, national economics. Goods has to be changed from time to time. It also changes the weights to be attached to the selected goods. 5. Problem of price changes within the year. These changes are due to change in the quality of the commodities, changes in the cost of production, among others. This makes it difficult to have uniform prices to be used in a computation of price indices for the selected basket of goods. 6. Differences in prices of goods in different areas/regions. The prices of the commodities selected are not the same in all areas in Uganda. This is due to differences in bargaining, price discrimination, among others. Therefore, it becomes difficult to get prices of the commodities both in the base year and the current, hence complicating the process of compiling price indices. 7. Appearance and disappearance of products from the market. With passing of time, new products are put on the market while old ones disappear from the market. This means that the basket of goods must be changed from time to time, which complicates the computation of price indices. 8. Limited data/information. There is limited information about prices, new products on the market, and consumers' expenditure. For example, new products on the market are on high demand but are not included in the basket of goods. This leads to misleading statistical data and the price indices computed are not realistic. 9. Limited personnel with appropriate skills needed for compiling relevant information. There are few trained people who are skilled in the work of collecting information on prices of goods and consumption habits of the people. This results into computation of wrong price indices which do not reflect the true cost of living index. 10. Limited facilities for collecting, resourcing and storing data. The equipment needed to electronically process and store data are in limited supply. This is because the equipment is expensive. This makes it difficult to store the data collected and thus data is sometimes lost. 11. Absence of standardized weights and measures for quantifying goods. Different commodities are sold using different weights and measures. Some people use heaps, others tins and baskets. As a result, different prices are charged for the different units of measurement. This complicates the process of getting a standard price to be used in economics. National economics. 13. Commodities are usually sampled and not all commodities are included. 14. Difficulty in valuing goods exchanged through barter. National income equilibrium. The equilibrium level of national income is reached when there are no economic forces operating to change the level of national income. In the short run, national income is in equilibrium when injections are equal to leakages. Injections and leakages in an open economy. Injections are elements/items that add to this circular flow of income. Examples of injections: investments I, government expenditure G, exports X, capital inflows. Leakages withdrawals are elements/items that reduce the circular flow of income. Examples of leakages: savings S, taxation T, imports M, capital outflows. No. Economics. National economics. E equals equilibrium point. E equals equilibrium level of income. Aggregate demand. Aggregate demand is the total demand for goods and services in an economy at a given period of time. Or, aggregate demand is the total amount of expenditure on goods and services by all sectors in the economy. Components of aggregate demand in an open economy: consumption expenditure by households on consumer goods I, expenditure on investment by firms I, government expenditure G, net expenditure in the foreign sector XM. Determinants of aggregate demand: general price level, level of income, the size of the population, level of taxation and subsidization, the existing stock of capital, the available stock of consumer goods and services. Economics. National economics. The distribution of income, the level of money supply. Aggregate supply. Aggregate supply refers to the total quantity of all goods produced by all firms in an economy at different price levels during a given time. Determinants of aggregate supply: the general price level, the techniques of production, the level of taxation/subsidization/ the availability of incentives to producers, the level of utilization of existing natural resources, the skills of labor, the number of firms/industries in the country, the market size/the aggregate demand, the level of monetization of the economy/the size of the subsistence sector, the level of infrastructural development, the entrepreneurial ability, the degree of liberalization of the economy, the political atmosphere, the cost of production, the availability of raw materials. Economics. National economics. Illustration: the gap AB represents the inflationary gap. If his income at full employment level, E is the equilibrium income. E is the equilibrium point. Effects of an inflationary gap: persistent increase in prices of goods and services, upward pressure on factor prices e.g. wages, increased demand for factors of production, increased profits for firms. Economics. National economics. 3. Control wages. This is achieved through the maximum wage policy aimed at reducing the wages and salaries of employees, thereby reducing aggregate demand in the economy. 4. Use of restrictive monetary policy, for example selling government securities to the public, increasing the bank rate, etc. This reduces on the amount of money in circulation and thus checks on aggregate demand. 5. Discourage exportation of goods and services which are scarce in the economy. Reduction in exports guarantees enough goods and services for consumption, thus increasing aggregate supply and reducing the inflationary gap. 6. Encourage importation of goods and services which are scarce in the economy. This boosts aggregate supply, hence reducing inflationary gap. Economics. National economics. If equals full employment level of income. E equals equilibrium point. Effects of a deflationary gap: decline in prices, decline in output and economic growth, rising unemployment, decline in government revenue, decline in incomes, decline in demand for goods and services, existence of surplus output in the economy. How to close the deflationary gap: 1. Reduce direct taxes. A reduction in direct taxes increases people's disposable income, hence increasing aggregate demand, investment, output and employment, hence closing the deflationary gap. 2. Increase government expenditure. This can be through increased provision of essential goods and services either free of charge or at subsidized prices. This increases aggregate demand on consumption, hence closing the deflationary gap. 3. Increase wages and salaries of workers. This increases incomes of workers, leading to an increase in aggregate demand, which in turn increases investment, employment and output, hence closing a deflationary gap. 4. Use of expansionary monetary policy. This increases money supply in the economy, which helps to stimulate aggregate demand for goods and services. 5. Encourage exportation of goods and services which are abundant in the economy. This creates an outlet for surplus domestic output, which helps to increase incomes of exporters, hence increasing the level of aggregate demand. 6. Discourage the importation of goods and services which are abundant in the economy so as to reduce on the supply of such goods. This increases the demand for domestic goods so that aggregate supply matches with the level of aggregate demand in an economy. 7. Fixing a maximum price. This discourages production of goods and services and encourages consumption. Economics, national economics. 8. Improvement of infrastructure, for example the transport network, to ease transportation of commodities from areas of plenty to areas of scarcity. 9. Provide a conducive investment climate. This encourages more investment activities that generate more income for the people, thus leading to increase in aggregate demand for goods and services. Consumption, saving and investment theories. Consumption theory. Consumption refers to the total expenditure on goods and services which yield utility in the current period. Or, consumption is the act of using a good or service to satisfy human needs. Consumption function. This refers to the income-consumption relationship. This relationship is algebraically expressed as letter 1d436 equals letter 1d44e plus letter 1d44f letter 1d44c letter 1d451, where C equals consumption dependent variable, A equals autonomous consumption at 0, income, B equals marginal propensity to consume MPC, YD equals disposable income. When the household income is 0, it will consume some minimal amount via begging. Economics, national economics. As income rises, MPC declines. Rich individuals have a low MPC, i.e., as their income increases they consume a small proportion of the additional income. Concepts used in consumption theory. 1. Autonomous consumption. This is the consumption that does not dependent on the income level. It exists even at 0 income. 2. Induced consumption. This is consumption which depends on the level of income, i.e., increase in income leads to increase in consumption and vice versa. 3. Marginal propensity to consume MPC. This is a proportion of the additional income that is spent on consumption/consumed. It is the ratio of change in consumption to change in income. Letter 1d440, letter 1d44e, letter 1d45f, letter 1d454, letter 1d456, letter 1d45b, letter 1d44v, letter 1d45f, letter 1d45c, letter 1d45d, letter 1d452, letter 1d45b, letter 1d461, letter 1d45c, letter 1d46, letter 1d45c, letter 1d45b, letter 1d460, letter 1d460, letter 1d45a equals letter 1d436, letter 210, letter 1d44, letter 1d45b, letter 1d454, letter 1d452, letter 1d456, letter 1d45b, letter 1d450, letter 1d450, letter 1d450, letter 1d45b, letter 1d460, letter 1d460, letter 1d4p6, letter 210, letter 1d44, letter 1d45b, letter 1d454, letter 1d452, letter 1d456, letter 1d45b, letter 1d456, letter 1d45b, letter 1d450, letter 1d450, letter 1d45a, letter 1d452. The determinants of marginal propensity to consume include the level of income, the consumption habits, the price level, the interest rates on savings, level of direct taxation. Economics, national economics. MPC tends to reduce with the rise in income. Is noted to be high among the poor and relatively low among the rich. 4. Average propensity to consume APC. This is the proportion of the total income spent on consumption. It is the ratio of consumption expenditure to income. Letter 1d44, letter 1d46, letter 1d452, letter 1d45f, letter 1d44, letter 1d454, letter 1d44, letter 1d45f, letter 1d45c, letter 1d45d, letter 1d45, letter 1d45b, letter 1d461, letter 1d45c, letter 1d4b6, letter 1d45c, letter 1d45b, letter 1d460, letter 1d46, letter 1d45a equals letter 1d4b6, letter 1d45c, letter 1d45b, letter 1d460, letter 1d46, letter 1d45a. Letter 1d4c, letter 1d45b, letter 1d450, letter 1d45c, letter 1d45a, letter 1d452. 5. Marginal propensity to import MPM. This is the proportion of the additional national income spent on imports in the country. It is the ratio of change in import expenditure to change in national income. Letter 1 D4 for 0, letter 1 D4 for letter 1 D4 5 F, letter 1 D4 5 for letter 1 D4 5 6, letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 4 to letter 1 D4 5 F, letter 1 D4 5 C, letter 1 D4 5 D, letter 1 D4 5 to letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 6 1, letter 1 D4 5 C, letter 1 D4 B C, letter 1 D4 5 L, letter 1 D4 5 D, letter 1 D4 5 C, letter 1 D4 5 F, letter 1 D4 6 1 equals letter 1 D4 V 6, letter 2 1 0 E, letter 1 D4 4 E, letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 5 4, letter 1 D4 5 T, letter 1 D4 5 6, letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 5 6, letter 1 D4 5 L, letter 1 D4 5 D, letter 1 D4 5 C, letter 1 D4 5 F, letter 1 D4 6 1, letter 1 D4 5 to letter 1 D4 6 5, letter 1 D4 5 D, letter 1 D4 5 to letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 5 1. Letter 1 D4 P6, letter 2 1 0 E, letter 1 D4 3, letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 5 4, letter 1 D4 5 2, letter 1 D4 5 6, letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 4 E, letter 1 D4 6 1, letter 1 D4 5 6, letter 1 D4 5 C, letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 5 6, letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 5 0, letter 1 D4 5 C, letter 1 D4 5 A, letter 1 D4 5 2. 6. Average propensity to import APM. This is the proportion of the total national income that is spent on imports. It is the ratio of the total import expenditure to total national income. Letter 1 D4 before letter 1 D4 6 letter 1 D4 5 to letter 1 D4 5 F, letter 1 D4 4 E, letter 1 D4 5 4, letter 1 D4 4 P, letter 1 D4 5 F, letter 1 D4 5 C, letter 1 D4 5 D, letter 1 D4 5 to letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 6 1, letter 1 D4 5 C, letter 1 D4 B C, letter 1 D4 5 A, letter 1 D4 5 D, letter 1 D4 5 C, letter 1 D4 5 F, letter 1 D4 6 1 equals letter 1 D4 4 7, letter 1 D4 5 C, letter 1 D4 6 1, letter 1 D4 3, letter 1 D4 5 9, letter 1 D4 5 6, letter 1 D4 5 A, letter 1 D4 5 D, letter 1 D4 5 C, letter 1 D4 5 F, letter 1 D4 6 1, letter 1 D4 5 to letter 1 D4 6 5, letter 1 D4 5 T, letter 1 D4 5 to letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 5 1. Letter 1 D4 4 7, letter 1 D4 5 C, letter 1 D4 6 1, letter 1 D4 3, letter 1 D4 5 9, letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 4 E, letter 1 D4 6 1, letter 1 D4 5 6, letter 1 D4 5 C, letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 5 6, letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 5 0, letter 1 D4 5 C, letter 1 D4 5 A, letter 1 D4 5 2. Worked examples. 1. Given that a country's national income is SHS 60,000 billion and its total consumption is SHS 48,000 billion, calculate its APC. And APC equals 0.8. 2. Given that a country's gross domestic product GDP increased from $100 million to $300 million and the value of imports increased from $25 million to $75 million, calculate the marginal propensity to import. And MPN equals 0.25. Savings theory. Savings refers to the proportion of income which is not spent on current consumption but put aside for future use. Savings function. Households decide how much to consume and how much to save. It follows that once we Economics, national economics. Concepts used in the savings theory. 1. Contractual savings. These are savings where an individual is supposed to save a fixed amount of money in a given time, for example per month. Such savings include savings with insurance companies, pension schemes. 2. Discretional savings. These are savings where people are not obliged to save a specific amount in a given time, for example bank deposits, building societies. 3. Marginal propensity to save. This is the proportion of the additional income that is saved. It is the ratio of change in savings to change in income. Letter 1 D4 for 0, letter 1 D4 4 E, letter 1 D4 5 F, letter 1 D4 5 4, letter 1 D4 5 6, letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 4 P, letter 1 D4 5 F, letter 1 D4 5 C, letter 1 D4 5 T, letter 1 D4 5 to letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 6 1, letter 1 D4 5 C, letter 1 D4 6 0, letter 1 D4 4 E, letter 1 D4 6 3, letter 1 D4 5 2 equals letter 1 D4 3 6, letter 2 1 0 E, letter 1 D4 4 E, letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 5 4, letter 1 D4 5 2, letter 1 D4 5 6, letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 6 0, letter 1 D4 4 E, letter 1 D4 6 3, letter 1 D4 5 6, letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 5 4, letter 1 D4 3 6, letter 2 1 0 E, letter 1 D4 4 E, letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 5 4, letter 1 D4 5 2, letter 1 D4 5 6, letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 5 6, letter 1 D4 5 B, letter 1 D4 5 0, letter 1 D4 5 C, letter 1 D4 5 L, letter 1 D4 5 2. MPS tends to increase with increase in income. It is noted to be high among the rich and low among the poor. No. Letter 1 D4 for 0, letter 1 D4 4 3, letter 1 D4 V6 plus letter 1 D4 for 0, letter 1 D4 4 3, letter 1 D4 for 6 equals 1. Proof. Letter 1 D4 4 C equals letter 1 D4 3 6 plus letter 1 D4 4 6. Letter 1 D4 4 C equals letter 1 D4 3 6 plus letter 1 D4 4 6. Economics, national economics. Therefore MPC equals 1 MPS. MPS equals 1 MPC. 4. Average propensity to save APS. This is the proportion of the total income that is saved. It is the ratio of total savings to total income. 1d4 before little 1d4 3 little 1d4 5 2 little 1d4 5 effort 1d4 4 little 1d4 5 4 little 1d4 4 little 1d4 5 effort 1d4 5 c little 1d4 5 d little 1d4 5 2 little 1d4 5 b little 1d4 6 1 little 1d4 5 c little 1d4 4 6 little 1d4 4 little 1d4 6 3 little 1d4 5 2 equals little 1d4 4 6 little 1d4 4 little 1d4 6 3 little 1d4 5 6 little 1d4 5 b little 1d4 5 4 little 1d4 3 c little 1d4 5 b little 1d4 5 0 little 1d4 5 c little 1d4 5 a little 1d4 5 2. Example: given that a rise in national income from $5,200 million to $5,280 million led to an increase in savings from $400 million to $420 million. Calculate. MPS ANS equals 0.25. The MPC ANS equals 0.75. Exercise. You are provided with the following table. Fill in the missing values. Y, C, S, letter 1d4 letter 1d4 6, letter 1d4 6, MPC, MPS, 100,000, 60,000, 120,000, 50,000, 150,000, 70,000, 185,000, 85,000, 200,000, 90,000. Economics, national economics. Degree of liquidity preference. Degree of uncertainty. Rate of interest on bank deposits. Age of individual. Consumption and expenditure habits of the people. Health status of the person. Degree of awareness of the masses about the benefits of saving. Level of direct taxes. Level of development of the financial sector, commercial sector. Degree of monetization of the economy / size of the subsistence sector. Degree of accountability. The investment theory. Definitions. Investment. Investment refers to the process of devoting part of a person's / national income to production and creation of capital goods in an economy. Gross investment. It refers to the value of investment before deducting the depreciation value. Net investment. Net investment refers to the total amount of capital invested minus depreciation capital. Consumption allowance. Or net investment refers to additional capital goods produced in excess to those that wear out and need to be replaced. Types of investment. 1. Autonomous investment. This is a form of investment which is independent of the level of national income. It is influenced by other factors such as wars, climate, population growth rates, labor force, government policy, etc. 2. Induced investment. Economics, national economics. This is the form of investment which is dependent on the size of national income. The higher the level of national income, the higher the level of national income, and the lower the level of national income, the lower the level of investment. Determinants of the level of investment in an economy. 1. Level of interest rates on loans. High interest rates on loans discourage potential investors from getting loans from commercial banks and other financial institutions. This leads to low levels of investment. On the other hand, low interest rates on loans make borrowing cheap, and this enables investors to borrow and buy capital goods, hence high investment levels. 2. Marginal efficiency of capital. Marginal efficiency of capital is the anticipated monetary returns on an additional unit of capital invested. The higher the marginal efficiency of capital, the greater the level of investment, and the lower the marginal efficiency of capital, the lower the level of investment. 3. Level of income. High incomes result into high savings, which leads to high levels of investment. However, low incomes give rise to low savings, and this leads to low investment levels. 4. Government investment policies. Favorable policies to investors like tax holidays, subsidies lead to higher levels of investment since they reduce the cost of doing business. On the other hand, unfriendly policies like heavy taxation, unnecessary bureaucracy discourage investors, hence low investment. 5. The level of existing stock of capital. The higher the level of existing stock of capital, the higher the level of investment, and vice versa. 6. Level of development of infrastructure. Well-developed infrastructure in form of good roads, railway lines, communication facilities encourage investors to set up production units. On the other hand, poor infrastructures discourage investments. 7. The level of entrepreneurship skills. High levels of entrepreneurship skills lead to high investment levels due to high degree of organization of factors of production and risk-taking, and vice versa. Economics, national economics. Existence of political stability in an economy encourages both local and foreign investors due to assured security of life and property, hence high levels of investment. However, political instability creates uncertainty, and this scares potential investors, leading to low levels of investment in the economy. 9. The prevailing economic situation. Macroeconomic stability in form of stable prices and stable exchange rates encourage investments, and vice versa. 10. The state of technology used. The use of more efficient methods of production leads to high levels of investment since the production process is simplified. On the other hand, use of poor technology discourages investments in the economy. 11. Market size. A wider market directly stimulates greater economic activities, and this leads to high levels of investment since the production line is quickly cleared. However, a small market discourages investment. 12. Etc. Assignment. Suggest measures that should be taken to increase the level of investment in your country. The multiplier concept. The multiplier refers to the number of times that an initial change in a given expenditure multiplies itself to generate a final change in national income. The size of the multiplier can be calculated using the formula letter 1 d440, letter 1 d462, letter 1 d459, letter 1 d461, letter 1 d456, letter 1 d45d, letter 1 d43 equals letter 1 d44c, letter 1 d438 1, where letter 1 d44c equals change in income. Letter 1 d438 equals change in initial expenditure. From equation 1, letter 1 d44c equals letter 1 d43, letter 1 d438. No. Economics, national economics. The size of the multiplier depends on the marginal propensity to consume MPC and the marginal propensity to save MPS. Therefore, the multiplier can be expressed in terms of MPC. MPS as follows. Letter 1 d43 equals 1. 1 minus letter 1 d440, letter 1 d443, letter 1 d436, 3. But 1 MPC equals MPS. Letter 1 d43 equals 1. Letter 1 d440, letter 1 d443, letter 1 d446, 4. Also note that letter 1 d459, letter 1 d456, letter 1 d45b, letter 1 d443, letter 1 d459, letter 1 d456, letter 1 d45b, letter 1 d450, letter 1 d450, letter 1 d458, letter 1 d452 equals letter 1 d456, letter 1 d45b, letter 1 d456, letter 1 d461, letter 1 d456, letter 1 d43, letter 1 d456, letter 1 d45b, letter 1 d450, letter 1 d450, letter 1 d458, letter 1 d452 times letter 1 d440, letter 1 d46, letter 1 d459, letter 1 d461, letter 1 d456, letter 1 d45d. Letter 1 d459, letter 1 d456, letter 1 d45b, letter 1 d443, letter 1 d459, letter 1 d459, letter 1 d452, letter 1 d463, letter 1 d452, letter 1 d459, letter 1 d452, letter 1 d453, letter 1 d456, letter 1 d45b, letter 1 d450, letter 1 d450, letter 1 d450, letter 1 d452 equals letter 1 d456, letter 1 d445b, letter 1 d456, letter 1 d461, letter 1 d456, letter 1 d443, letter 1 d456, letter 1 d445b, letter 1 d450, letter 1 d450, letter 1 d450, letter 1 d452 plus letter 1 d450, letter 2 1 0, letter 1 d43, letter 1 d45b, letter 1 d454, letter 1 d452, letter 1 d456, letter 1 d45b, letter 1 d456, letter 1 d45b, letter 1 d450, letter 1 d452, letter 1 d45, letter 1 d46. Examples. 1. Given that the current level of gross domestic product is 300 million shillings, the increase in national investment expenditure is 50 million shillings and the marginal propensity to save is 0.2. Calculate the final level of national income. And equals 550 million shillings. 2. Given that the marginal propensity to consume MPC in an economy is 0.7 and there is a change in investment of SHS 50 million, calculate the following. I investment multiplier, and equals 3.3333. Roman 2 final change in income in the economy, and equals 165 million shillings. 3. Given that initial national income of a country is SHS 22 billion and that the MPS is 40%, calculate the final income in that country. And equals SHS 55 billion. 4. Given that the marginal propensity to consume MPC in a two-sector economy is 80%, initial investment is SHS 20 million. Initial equilibrium level of income is SHS 800 million. If investment increased by SHS 5,000 million. Economics, national economics.